Okay, picture this for a second. You wake up in a place that literally doesn't exist on any modern tourist map. You're deep inside an absolutely impenetrable jungle, and you're definitely not there on some kind of adventure. You are a captive. But, not a prisoner of war. A prisoner of a shadowy, digital global economy you barely understand. Welcome back to our latest explainer. Today we're diving into one of the most unbelievable, harrowing, true survival stories of our time, the incredible escape of a Chinese ex-soldier from the notorious cyber scam centers of Myanmar. Seriously, this isn't some Hollywood action script. This is real life or death stakes happening right now in the hidden corners of our totally interconnected world. So we're going to break down exactly how these dark operations run, the terrifying reality of what it actually takes to survive them, and what this one guy's incredible jungle survival story reveals about a massive, invisible global crisis. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this because the premise alone is absolutely chilling. I mean, think about it. How does a highly trained military operative, someone who knows hand-to-hand combat, tactical evasion, the whole nine yards, end up trapped in a modern-day slavery camp, right? We usually think of trafficking or scam victims as, vulnerable folks who might lack physical defenses. But our protagonist here, he's a Chinese ex-soldier. It completely shatters what we think we know. He wasn't scooped up in the dead of night by some rival military force. He got ensnared by a system so incredibly deceptive and well-oiled that even his hardcore military background couldn't save him from the initial trap. He couldn't just punch his way out the front door. And honestly, the fact that a literal soldier was neutralized and held captive, that just speaks volumes about the sheer power, organization, and utter brutality of the syndicates running these camps.
To truly wrap our heads around what this soldier was up against, we really need to understand the battlefield. Because a cyber scam center isn't just like a handful of hackers in a dark basement. No way. We are talking about highly guarded remote fortresses. Imagine massive compounds, concrete walls towering over you, topped with razor wire, and actively patrolled by heavily armed militias. Inside, captives are forced into absolutely brutal 14 to 16-hour shifts, and they're handed massive financial quotas. Their captors basically say, hey, you need to extract X amount of money from victims overseas using dating apps, crypto frauds, or fake investment platforms. And if they fail to hit those numbers, the punishment is horrifying. We're talking severe physical violence, electrocution, starvation, or worse. It's essentially a digital sweatshop run by ruthless warlords, specifically engineered to break the human spirit and demand absolute, unquestioning compliance.
Now there is a totally stark, terrifying contrast we have to look at here. Normally, the standard victim in one of these cyber cells is someone with a civilian background, right? Usually lured in by some fake job offer, completely terrified and utterly helpless in such a violent environment. But then you have our guy, an ex-soldier, combat-trained, highly disciplined, hardened. When you put those two profiles side by side, you really start to grasp the absolute supremacy of these captors. Because look, if armed guards and systemic torture can keep a trained military veteran locked down for any length of time, it just highlights how unimaginably hopeless the situation is for the average civilian trapped right next to him. These syndicates rely on overwhelming force and pure psychological terror to strip away your identity and your hope. But while they managed to strip this soldier of his freedom, they couldn't strip away his training.
Before we get to the dramatic escape itself, we kind of have to look at the macro-level economics that literally built his prison. The mechanics of this cyber slavery operate in a devastatingly efficient three-step pipeline. Step 1. The lure. The syndicates post these really legitimate-looking, high-paying jobs online. Tech, translation, customer service, usually promising relocation to places like Thailand. Desperate people looking for a better life just travel willingly. Step 2. The trap. Once they arrive, they're illegally smuggled across the border into these lawless regions of Myanmar, and boom, passports confiscated. The illusion is totally gone, and they're thrown into those fortified compounds we just talked about. And finally, step 3, the force. They are sat down at computers and forced to become the very scammers we all despise. It's a highly systematized, multi-billion-dollar machine of human suffering. And it was right inside this machine that our ex-soldier realized he really only had two choices: die sitting at a computer or risk dying out in the jungle.
Then comes the breaking point. This is the moment where absolutely everything shifts. He's endured the days of forced labor, the nights of secret plotting, the agonizing wait for that one perfect window of opportunity. Maybe it's a blind spot in the cameras, a guard looking the wrong way, just a tiny, momentary lapse in their ironclad security. And then he makes his move. Over the razor wire, through the perimeter. Alarms are screaming, dogs are barking, gunfire is echoing through the compound. Adrenaline is just flooding his system as he breaches the walls. But here's the kicker. Freedom wasn't waiting for him on the other side. The other side is the absolute, unforgiving wilderness of Myanmar. He literally traded a man-made hell for a natural one. The real fight for survival? It was just getting started.
Seriously, getting over that wall was literally just the first second of a grueling timeline. Immediately after the breakout, he had to shift straight into deep jungle evasion. And guys, this is not some casual hike in a national park. The jungle along the Myanmar border is a dense, suffocating labyrinth. We're talking sharp foliage, hidden ravines, predatory wildlife. And he couldn't use trails. Trails mean patrols, and patrols mean getting recaptured or worse, executed. So he had to vanish completely into the canopy, fighting his way through leech-infested brush for days. Then comes the sheer physical toll, days bleeding into nights with zero food rations, his body literally starting to consume itself for energy. He had to navigate purely by instinct in the position of the stars, in total, utter isolation. Finally, it was an agonizing crawl just to reach safety across the border. Every single step on this timeline demanded a completely different survival skill. Every single step is a moment where giving up literally meant death.
Just to survive that timeline required pushing way past what we think are the absolute limits of human endurance. It meant drinking stagnant, muddy water from jungle puddles, just to stave off deadly dehydration. It meant ignoring severe lacerations from the compound's razor wire and pushing through total muscle failure while trying to sustain himself on wild plants and insects. And you know, out there in that extreme isolation, screaming for help wouldn't bring a rescue helicopter. It would just bring the heavily armed militia actively hunting him down. The psychological weight of knowing that men with rifles and dogs are sweeping the jungle specifically for you, it's unimaginably heavy. And this is exactly why he's survived, his sole reliance on military training. He knew how to mask his tracks in the mud, he knew how to camouflage his resting spots, he knew how to take blinding panic and channel it into cold tactical focus. His past as a soldier was literally the only compass he had in a truly hopeless landscape.
But you know, as we step back from the incredible personal triumph of his survival, we're hit with a really deeply disturbing realization. If a highly trained, incredibly resilient ex-soldier barely survived this ordeal, if he was pushed to the absolute brink of human endurance just to make it out with his life, what on earth happens to everyone else, right? What happens to the teenager who thought they were just getting a legitimate data entry job abroad? What happens to the desperate parent just trying to send some money back home to their family? They can't navigate an impenetrable jungle. They don't know how to evade armed trackers. They absolutely do not have the skills to survive the wilderness.
The reality here is just devastating. Thousands, literally thousands of people are currently trapped in the exact same horrifying conditions our ex-soldier escaped from. They haven't broken out. They haven't navigated the jungle. Right now, they're sitting in dark rooms, surrounded by razor wire, terrified for their lives, and working brutal forced shifts. This is not just an isolated incident. It is a massive, systemic, geopolitical tragedy. There are entire shadow cities existing in these borderlands solely to run this digital slavery empire. So, while our protagonist's story is this incredible tale of resilience and victory, it also shines a stark, inescapable light on the thousands of silent victims who are still waiting for a rescue that, honestly, might never come.
And here is why this explainer matters to every single person watching right now. The scams generated in those remote jungle camps, they are hitting your phone and your inbox at this very second. This isn't just some problem happening far away in a vacuum. It's deeply, deeply connected to our daily lives. You know those random text messages you get that say something like, "Hey, is this John? I think I have the wrong number." Yeah, that's almost always a pig butchering scam attempt. Those fake crypto investments popping up on your social media feed, the fraudulent tech support emails. A massive percentage of all that global digital noise is being forcefully typed out by the thousands of victims we just talked about. The syndicate's weapon is the internet, and their targets are our bank accounts.
So we started this explainer looking at the unbelievable survival of one man against truly impossible odds. But we're ending it by looking at the much larger, darker machine that he managed to leave behind. The next time an unknown number messages you, will you wonder whose captive hands were forced to send it? Will you think of those high concrete walls, the armed guards, and that terrifying, endless jungle? The story of the Chinese ex-soldier is an absolute testament to the sheer willpower of human survival, but it is also a massive, urgent alarm bell for the rest of the world. Because while the digital age has connected us in some incredibly beautiful ways, it has also forged these new invisible chains. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and I'll see you next time.